Yesterday we made a big change in our program. We changed the way the data is stored. Because before yesterday the data was simply stored in variables, and that meant whenever the user closed the program, the data would get lost. So the user experience couldn't be more terrible than that. We changed all that by storing the data in a text file, in this todos.txt text file. To implement that, we did these changes in the code. So when the user wants to add a to-do, we get the to-do from the user using an input function again, and then we see what existing to-dos we have in the file. So we open the file in read mode. You see R here. And we store the to-dos in a to-dos list. So we need to have that list because later we append the user to-do in this to-dos list. And then, of course, this to-dos list has to be written back to the file. To do that, we open the file in write mode, and that overrides the existing file. But that's okay because we already have the content that the file had, so we have it in to-dos. Therefore, we write the to-dos list in the file. So now the to-dos list will contain the existing data plus the new to-do which was added in here. And so we close the file here and we are done with that. We also implemented this in the show methods, and here we only wanted to read data, so we only opened the file in read mode, as you can see in here. We get the data in a to-dos list, we close the file, and then we iterate over that to-dos list. So to-dos list was created here, we iterate in here, and we print out the data as we did before. So that's what we did previously. We still have to make some important changes to our program, we still have to improve it, so let's improve it in the next videos today. See you! Hey, welcome back. In this video we will make our program a bit more user-friendly, because currently we get these break lines here, which it's not so good to have from the user perspective. So let's remove these break lines. But how do we go about this? Again, in todos.txt we don't have these break lines. Actually, we have break lines, but only one break line. So there's a \n after prepare, and then there is another \n after shower, and so on. So the extra break line is being produced by the print function here. So we end up with two sets of break lines for each line. So how do we go about this? Do we remove the break lines from the text file, or we do something in here? Well, of course we shouldn't edit the text file. We should edit the representation of the data that is in the text file. So the representation is the list, therefore we should edit the list. So that's the case block, and here we get the to-dos list from the text file, and then we iterate over that to-dos list. But now a solution we could think about is to remove the \n characters from the list, because currently if we print out the list here, we execute the program again, we press show, and this time you're gonna see that that's the print function that I've just added. So that print function produces that list. So the list has these \ characters, and then the loop adds some more. So let's remove these backslashes, and then we fix the problem. So we remove the \ from each item. Therefore, the loop will only produce one backslash, the backslash that it produces by default, and it will not have any other backslashes. Therefore, how do we edit each of these items? So how do we perform batch operations? You learned for loops earlier in the course, so that is something you can use. There are two solutions for this actually. One is for loops and one is list comprehensions, and we're going to go through both. So let's first start with for loops. That's the existing list, but what I'll do is I'll create a new list here. So in the same indentation level, let's say new to-dos variable is equal to an empty list. And then what we do is we iterate over for item in to-dos, we iterate over to-dos. So item will be each item of the to-do list, including the backslash n, and then we say new item will be equal to item.strip backslash n. So that command, what it does is this. So let's say item will be equal to prepare backslash n. Therefore, new item is equal to item.strip backslash n. So new item now is going to be equal to just prepare without the backslash n, while item is that one. So new item will be without the backslash, and then what we do is we access new to-dos dot append and we add new item there. So we're going to end up with a new list which is going to contain the items without the backslash n characters. And then what we could do is in here we iterate over new to-dos instead of to-dos. And that will solve the issue. So now let me rerun the script and type show, and these are the to-dos. We also get the lists here from that print, so we can remove that print function. We don't need it anymore. So that is one way to do it. Another way to clean up the list is to use a list comprehension. A list comprehension is the equivalent of a for loop. So it's just another way to modify the items of a list, but it's a shorter way. You'll see why. And a list comprehension, all it takes is one single line, and it starts always with square brackets. So inside here you write an inline for loop. So a for loop in one line, you would say item.strip backslash n. So that is one expression. And you say for item in to-dos. And this is going to be new to-dos. So this is basically a list. And I'm going to remove these. We don't need them anymore, but before I remove them, just try to compare the for loop with this. So basically what we're saying is that you can start reading this from here to understand it. So for item in to-dos, you iterate over the to-dos list, store item.strip backslash n in this list. So this will return an item without the backslash n. So this item will be part of the list, and this is repeated over the other items. So we end up with 3 items. as part of this list. So this will be just a list. So let me delete that now. And the declaration of the new to-dos list. So with the list comprehension, you don't even have to declare an empty list. You create the list on the fly using the list comprehension. So run, show, and we get the same exact output using a list comprehension. However, perhaps we didn't even need to use a list comprehension here. We could apply a more direct method to remove the \n characters from these to-do items. So that way would be to, I'll delete this. The way is to iterate over to-dos as it was. So this was the code in the beginning of the video, which produces again these items with extra break lines. And then what you could do is you want to override the item variable. You could do something like item is equal to item.strip, and then here you place \n, and then this item here will be the new string without the \n character. So let me try this solution as well. And here we go. So I suppose this was a simple solution, but this was a good opportunity for you to understand list comprehensions. So whenever you want to modify the items of a list, you want to use a list comprehension. And of course, luckily or unluckily, sometimes there are more than one solution to do something. Which one is the best? Well, it depends. You should think about readability, but also efficiency. So how fast your code runs. And there are ways to measure the speed of your code, and we'll cover that later. For now, it is important to learn all the core elements of the language. So thank you for following this. I'll talk to you in the next videos. Hey, welcome to Code Experiments for today. Earlier today, we needed to remove the break lines from each to-do item. And for that, we tried two different ways. We first tried the list comprehension, which looked something like this. So we reassigned the new cleaned list to a new variable. But then we found out that since we have this for loop, then we could simply apply the strip method here instead of iterating over the list in a list comprehension. So then what I did is I removed this line from the code. But a better way would be to just comment this line. The way you comment a line is by using the hash symbol. So you just add that symbol in front of the line you want to comment. So what is commenting anyway? Well, commenting means this line will not be executed by the interpreter now. So it is in the code, it's just for us programmers to see it, but the interpreter will not use it. Now, we get this underline here because it is recommended to have a space between the symbol and the commented line. It is not a requirement, it is a recommendation. So another illustration, if we had this print function here on top, hi, and we run the codes, of course we would see hi. But if I add the hash symbol in front of print and I rerun the code, now hi will not be printed out. So comments are useful to have when you have some code that maybe you want to execute in the future. Maybe you are not sure if you really want to delete it, so just keep it for reference there. So the comment feature would be useful for that. So that's one use of the comment, to just comment code out so it is not executed. The other usefulness is to describe your code. For example, let's say that when you come later on in your code and you don't remember what you're doing in these 2 lines. So it's a good idea to actually, when you're programming, it's a good idea to actually write a comment here that describes these 2 lines. For example, get user input and remove and strip space characters from it. So by looking at this, it gives you some information about what these 2 lines are doing. Similarly, you could add a comment above this line. So you press enter here to create a break line, the hash symbol, and then you say check if user action is add. So that comment tells you that this case add is checking for the user action. However, you shouldn't abuse comments. So I do think that in this case, this comment is unnecessary because as a programmer, you know that case add checks the string against that variable. So it doesn't really give any much extra information to just say what case add does. So you only want to use comments when you really think it's necessary that a code line should have more extra information to tell to the programmer. And that is also why variable naming is important. So you should use meaningful names for variables so that you don't have to use comments. For example, by saying here to-dos, you know that this is a list of to-do items. But if you just said data, then it would be a bit ambiguous what this would actually mean. So be specific and descriptive with variable names. So use comments whenever you think some code does really need some description, and that's what you normally do. So write the line above a block of code. For example, here would be another example. Write to-dos in the file. But again, this wouldn't be necessary because we know what the open function does. But if you wanted to comment that block, you just write the comment on top of it. So that's about code experiments for today. We were focused on comments, and let's keep going. Hi everyone, in today's example we're going to transform this list of file names into this. So that's the output of the program. So let's suppose that we had some files and we got their file names using some other functions which you will learn later on in the course, and those functions created a list, and then you want to first change these strings into the new names. And for that, you use a list comprehension, which we will do now. And then maybe later on, you reassign those strings to the existing files on disk. So today, we're simply going to work on transforming the strings. So we got these names, the existing names of the files. Now we want to transform them. So when you want to transform a list, what you think is a list comprehension. So let's write the list comprehension. We will override the existing variable with the new list, which is constructed by the list comprehension. So what do we want to do to the file names? You see, this is 1.doc, and we want to transform it to 1-doc plus .txt. So how do we replace the dot with a dash? Well, using dot replace. So file name is a string. In the first iteration it represents the first string, so that expects a string, which means the character you want to replace, and another string, the character that you want the existing character to be replaced with. So the new list is going to contain the string with that character replaced plus another string, which is .txt. So that will construct a new string, because it is possible to concatenate two strings. So you get hey there. That's what we're doing there. For file name in file names, print file names, run, and here is the result. So that's the final code. And that's the syntax of the list comprehension. So it always starts with the new version of each item. So the new version of each item is this. The character replaced plus this added to the new string. And you do that for each file name in the file names list. So thanks for following. Hi there, today we're going to talk about what you can use Python for. That will help you position yourself in the industry, so perhaps your thoughts are not yet clear what you want to do with Python, and this video will help you. So I'll go over all the areas where Python can be used. We will start with the most popular areas, and one of them is web development. How can Python be used in web development? Well, when we say web development, we mean building websites or web apps. Now, what is the difference between a website and a web app? Well, a website is generally something that is more static, such as the website of a company where they show some information about the company, their services, the stuff, etc. And a web app is something more interactive. For example, you want to create a web app that lets the user upload some PDF, and then your web app merges those PDFs, giving the users one single PDF which they can download from the web app. So a website and a web app are both accessible from the user's browser. To build websites and web apps, you will need a Python web framework, such as Flask or Django. So in this course, we will work on web development, so don't worry. Perhaps if you want to go more advanced after finishing this course, then you might want to refer to the documentation of Flask and Django to actually advance your skills even further. So this course will prepare you to be a good programmer in core Python concepts, but also areas such as web development. Udemy.com, for example, is based on Django. Pythonhow.com, which is my blog, is also built in Django. So for example, this certain web page of the app has all these topics, so all these titles are stored in Python lists in a .py script. So all these are strings. And then I use Django to render them basically on this web page. Now, with web development, you also need to learn other languages and not just Python. So you will need to learn HTML first. HTML is used to create all the boxes, the fonts, everything that you see visually on the web page is written in HTML. But then the content itself, such as this here, that one, it is stored in Python as strings and lists, as I just explained. And then Python sends those strings, those lists, to the HTML. So HTML is something. Then you need to learn CSS. With CSS you can do nice things, such as you can round the corners of this button here. You can apply nice colors. So basically you want the web page to look modern, and CSS does that. Both HTML and CSS are actually very easy to learn, so don't worry about that. Then you might need to learn JavaScript. Depending on what you're doing, you can get away without it, perhaps, but sometimes you might want to have some interactivity on the front end. For example, if I search for pandas here, all these things that show here are implemented with JavaScript, so instant results. These are provided by the browser, so JavaScript runs on the user's browser. And so in this case, JavaScript is asking the Python codebase to get those items and display it on the HTML code. And so those are the languages you need to know for web development. So Python, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Next item, data science, machine learning, and AI. AI, which is artificial intelligence. So that's the other popular use of Python. Python can be used to process big data sets, which is common in data science. It can be used to create predictive models, which is part of machine learning and AI. For example, let's think about Amazon. When the user searches for something there, the user will get some other recommendations. So all these recommendations can be suggested, and Python can be used to actually learn from the user's searches and get from the database existing products that are most likely to be bought, to be purchased by the user. So that is a recommendation system which can be built in Python. Google search results are another example. Say you search for why are beds flat, and then the next search you do will perhaps be affected by the previous search. So maybe when you start searching on Google, Google will suggest you, oh, maybe you mean this. So it does learn from your searches and so on. With data science, machine learning, and AI, besides Python, you also need some basic knowledge or good knowledge of mathematics. So Python and math are both two requirements to be a data scientist. Next field you can use Python for is automations. And this can vary a lot. So you can do things from generating PDF reports automatically, like generating 10,000 of them based on some information you get somewhere else in text files, etc. Maybe you want to send batch emails, you want to schedule those emails. So Python is excellent for automating things. Basically, if you go through this course, you will be very good in automating everything. So I'll take you through all the core Python skills, and you also learn how to search and how to create your own programs. So you'll get that sort of training to be able to independently write anything by yourself. I also have another course on Udemy, which is exclusively for automating stuff, and you can find the link in the lecture resources here. So that's like a big recipe of Python scripts. The next field is general programming, which is somehow related to this automations field. So with general programming, I mean when Python is used by professionals which are not programmers, but you perhaps are a network admin, so you can use Python for different aspects of your work. Maybe you work on finance, and again you need core Python skills to create certain batch reports or analysis. So nowadays Python is becoming a must for many professions. Just like it was with Excel before, now Python can be a very good addition to your skill sets. Web scraping. Web scraping is a very specific area, and it is mainly used by freelancers, especially on online networks such as Upwork or Fiverr, Elance, freelancer.com. So it's quite a niche. And with web scraping, basically web scraping is when you have a website which has these data and you want those data in an Excel file, so in a good structured format. And Python, you can write a Python script which will go to that website and get those data and store them in an Excel file or in a CSV text file, wherever the client needs. So again, the boundary between general programming and automation and web scraping is a bit blurred. So web development and data science, machine learning and AI are more specific career paths, so to say. And you also have other fields you can use Python for example, data analysis, if you are a data analyst, and visualization as well. And you can create Python desktop apps using the Python programming language. That is not the best area where Python excels in, because there are other programming languages which are better for that, such as Java and C. So Python is best for web development, data science, machine learning, AI, and automations, and general programming, web scraping as well. And some people also use Python to create and sell APIs. So that is an overview of what you can use Python for. I hope that positions you a bit better in the field of programming. And I thank you for following this. I'll see you later.